Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Creation. I am Bridger, and this is the show that dives deep into a given topic regarding Ashes of Creation and asks the deep questions and tries to get the deep answers. Enough about that, though. We have my good co-host joining me, Freelancer and Ziz. Welcome.
For having me.
Yes, Ziz is a newcomer to the show, although it's the third episode, so I guess that is fairly easy to have. And we're all from the Imperium Guild, and we thank you for joining us, Imperium and Vornair. And the next show, just a quick meta update before we begin, will be on August 13th. At 7 p.m. is when we record. So you can find the link to the podcast version of this if you'd like to listen to it on the go at talesofshow.com. All right, so with that out of the way, let's jump into it. Guys, we have had two Q&As since the last episode, and they have been fairly interesting, actually. I was kind of concerned because they did basically 30 some odd Q&As during the Kickstarter, and I'm like, okay, it's been 2 weeks or 4 weeks. How much more could they possibly have done in that time? But we got a decent bit of info. So the things that specifically were interesting to me, on the June 16th Q&A, they mentioned that Ashes of Creation is going to be playable at PAX Prime. Are either of you going to be at PAX Prime?
Not this time.
You've been there before, though.
Yes. If they had tickets available for the weekend, I would be there. But right now, I think it's just Monday available. So.
Yeah, they're very hard to get these days.
I totally missed out. I used to live right across from Seattle, and I never went to PAX Prime. And in the last 5 years, I lived halfway across the country. I wish I could have been there every year. So,
yep.
Kind of jipped myself. I'm really surprised they're going to be there, though. That kind of blew me away when they said that. Because they were really kind of, standoffish about combat during the Kickstarter, saying we're not going to show anything until we have some more concrete. And then, hey, 2 months, you're going to be able to play it on the floor. People are going to be videos and live streams. I was very surprised.
I was very surprised, too. I'm still a little skeptical how you can go from what is essentially, a tech demo or a proof of concept that they've got so far. Just based on what we've seen in the live streams from the Kickstarter, it's not super robust. The interface obviously isn't close to finished. Right. But it sounds like they kind of focused on getting 3 or 4 or 5 skills, for each of the classes locked down, and they're just going to focus on those and nothing else, which certainly could allow them to tweak and test it a lot in the next 2 months if they just focus on,
right,
those 4 classes and those, 4 or 5 skills per class.
They're basically creating like these kits, mm-hmm. So for the PvE and PvP thing that they're doing, they have that template so they can actually represent. But I don't think it's going to be anything near what we're going to see, near launch. No. It's more they just want to show off things,
Yeah, and I'm not super surprised that they're going to have a presence there because, they just finished up the Kickstarter. They probably want to keep the hype train going and get some people interested that haven't heard of the game before. And, having a presence in the vendor area at PAX is a great way to do that. I'm just surprised they went so far as to say, we're going to make it playable too. Because when you think about it, you've got what is essentially going to be an alpha version of your game. That's going to be, there's probably going to be some bugs. It's not going to look as good as you're going to want it. It's not going to feel as good. It's not going to be as responsive. It's not going to be as optimized. And you're going to say, hey, here's your first look at our game. And obviously, when you're looking at Kickstarter people, they know what they're getting into. When you're looking at just a general PAX person who's like, hey, I wonder what new games are out there these days, and they wander into this thing, and they're going to be like, whoa, that's not what I want to see in a game. Yeah, that's not done. So I'm worried that they're going to have a problem with perception and expectations there.
Oh, for sure. You see that all the time. Games like even Camelot Unchained, they've been in development forever, but just their recent live stream, someone asked about NDA, and they were very much, no, we're not showing anything until we are sure what we show you isn't going to cause, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but what I got was, we don't want the internet to freak out when they see something that's unfinished. You put this on PAX, Ashes of Creation, on the floor, main floor, with games that are finished, huge, big budget things. I am worried that people won't realize this is a small glimpse, You know,
Of a game
I'm
that's
excited
two or
for
two and a
it,
half
but-
years away,
right.
maybe.
Yeah,
I think people will be simpler on the PAX floor. They're going to see Destiny 2 and things like that, like
Right.
pretty games. And if you've seen I mean, we've seen the videos for Ashes.
It
They're
is
pretty.
pretty.
They're pretty. Yeah. I mean, it's eye candy, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
what they're going to really be interested in. I don't think there's going to be somebody there that's going to be like psychoanalyzing the combat and
Right.
stuff.
Sure. You just have
Maybe
to
one
hope
or
the press
few, but
treats it correctly, you know.
the vast majority of people will stand from afar and look at the monitors and be like, "That game looks gorgeous," and that's really all they want, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as it looks pretty. I mean, you were talking about the UI. They clean up the UI. They're doing a very focused, playthrough. It's going to be a small section, a caravan, a specific dungeon. I'm sure that's what they're working on now, busting their butt. They're going to have some PvP too, though. If you have PvP, combat's not finished. I mean, the game's far away. I'm not worried about release, but I'm worried that the internet and people are too stupid to realize that this is early stuff, which is great for us, and I don't know, I'm sure they thought about it. They're probably not too worried about their perception.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm hoping that that won't be a big issue for them. And we've got Adam joining us here, hopefully. He's showing some
Yep.
red bars, but we'll see if that fixes itself here in a moment. While I work on getting that together, let's jump to the next topic here. So we learned a little bit more information on June 16th about how accounts are going to be set up. So it's going to be more traditional MMO setup where your account is not locked to a specific server, but your character will be, and servers do not interact at all. So you can have characters on multiple different servers. So you can play with your friends with your ranger over here, and you can play with a different set of friends with your mage over there on a different server, and there's no major problems. And that kind of, to me, seems important. But let me ask you guys this question. Do you think guilds are going to have presences on more than one server because they have access to more things, more raids, more differences because of the way that the node system works?
I would say not. Unless the economies are linked, which we don't think they are, you would be splitting your time between one server and another, meaning any time you spent is equal to a certain income, right? Gold or resources, gear, what have you. If you spend time on that other server, that's progress you're not making on this server. So I don't see guilds doing that. I do think that there is some unannounced ideas that are somewhat exciting to think about, that servers will still interact, in some way. I still have this dream of being able to open up a portal and like temporarily invade another zone in another server, or
Right.
like a battleground, and then like you have a limited time before your body, gets sucked back into your existing server, or something like that. I think that would be awesome. And they could even spin that into a lore like alternate dimensions and parallel universes and stuff like that. It'd be really cool. But that's stretching the limit.
Sure. Yeah, that actually could be fun for like one-time events, like holiday events like that. Like imagine if they did something like, hey, everybody on this server, we've frozen the status of the overall game on like October 30th. But for October 31st, half of the servers are going to invade the other half, and you're just going to have fun. And then when you get to November 1st, everything goes back to the way it was on October 30th. You could do some really crazy stuff with that. Who knows if the technology is there? But, whatever.
That's
Welcome,
the thing.
Adam.
Some technology. I don't know.
We got Adam set up in here. Hello.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can. Yep.
Yeah,
All
let me
right.
turn you off here a
I'm
little
glad to have another beard on the show.
Yeah, the chat room was concerned.
Right?
The chat
There
room
was a
was
lack of
concerned.
beard.
There was lack of
So.
beard. I apologize for my lack of beard.
all right.
So anyway, we learned some more cool
We evened
information.
it out.
Yeah, exactly. We learned some more cool information on the 30th Q&A, and that this is just a reinforcing of something that we already knew, but it still does kind of concern me a little bit. They basically double down on the idea that everything that works in PvP is going to work in PvE.
That concerned you?
Well, because other games have tried this. I mean, Guild Wars tried this, and then they had to go and make, this skill works differently from PvP and PvE because it has to, because of balance reasons. But I guess, if you're not trying to make an esport out of it, maybe the balance issues won't be as big of a deal. I don't know.
There were a couple things in the 30th Q&A as well that were like you could see them working in a PvE environment like a dungeon, but like the mage detect magic in the middle of a siege. I mean, what is that going to do?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
utility
got
skills
a.
almost exclusively sounded like they were going to be used
Traps.
for.
I could imagine
Maybe.
activating that skill and seeing 40 of the enemy army lighting up, but I mean, what is?
Hey, look! The guy over there with a robe is magical. Watch out!
Right. I mean, I guess the hope would be that when you're making a game with PvP first in mind, it's easy to tweak PvE encounters to fit the numbers of your skills that fit PvP, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, usually you have longer stuns, longer mez, all this sort of stuff for PvE encounters, and they don't work in PvP, so they have to change them all. I just find it annoying. You got your hotbar and skills work differently, and you get your rotations down. Then you go to a different part of the game, and you're playing something else, right? I mean, I don't really like that, and I think there's some cool ideas. I mean, you could put down magical traps that you don't see unless you look for them, right? You can have physical traps. They talk about the rangers seeing stuff there. I think there's some stuff they could do. I like the idea because that also goes into items as well, not having two different gear progression paths. I just like my character. If this is a badass sword one place, it should be the other place. Same with the ability, right? Why can't I stun someone with my shield bass same time?
Now here's a point of contention: Ranger minimum distance.
Ooh, that's the big one.
As
Yeah,
long as they have one of
do you
those
guys think about
backwards
that?
dodge rolls, isn't that okay?
So the idea for the people that didn't see the Q&A is that they have come out in front of everybody, and there was a lot of the chat just blew up and said that a ranger will have a minimum distance in which they can draw their bow and actually attack an enemy. And this is every other MMO has debated this, but this is going to be the first MMO that truly like just denies it. Other MMOs you have like a reduced damage or 50% less damage. Some just don't care, like Arcade. You can point blank people, but this one you're going to have to move out of the way. You have like Ranger will specifically be required to be at the back of the enemy, back of your lines. What do you guys think?
Do we have any archers in here?
Well, I think
Not me.
there's a number of really interesting mechanics that they can do there, right? The thing with range DPS is coming from a PvE background, right? The thing with range DPS is it was always preferred because you were so you had so many options available to you, right? In relation to when you spread and when you collapse for certain mechanics and so on and so forth. So putting a minimum distance, right, or a minimum range on a ranger makes it a whole lot more interesting for PvE related mechanics, because when you have to collapse in, right, now when you are theory crafting and building your meta for doing specific encounters, it's I need a stack point that's still within the ranged area, right, and a stack point on the melee area as opposed to bunching up in one group, which makes it a bit more interesting, adds a little bit more dynamic to those encounters for a ranger, in my opinion. In PvP, I can see it being a bit of a
It's going to
issue.
reinvent. It's going to
Depending.
reinvent the kiting mechanic.
If you can't do something, if you're standing there and your buttons don't work and you can't get away, I mean, obviously that sucks, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, they've
no one's
always
gonna like
kind
that.
of made the ranger, the bow is maybe a primary thing, but then, the World of Warcraft equivalent was the hunter, also is a dual wielding, close range survivalist fighter. Like, they've
Right.
made that concession so that they always have the ability to do something if they can't get away from their opponent. Like, there's many classes whose whole thing is I'm getting up in your face and you can't do anything about it. That's a sort of a theme of a lot of different things, like the rogue in WoW and other games like that. But I mean, how does the ranger respond? Are they the class that says I'm the best at kiting and so screw you? And when you have like the rogue meets the ranger, it's like the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. I don't know what happens there.
Right. I mean, as long as you have an option to do something that isn't going to severely hinder you, right? I mean, that I think I don't play ranged characters, but I can just imagine for me that would be the most frustrating, right? I got my bow. I think it looks kind of silly. You're standing a foot away from somebody, you shoot them in the face. Point blank shot, that makes sense, I guess. But in general, you should have to move away. But you got to have something to do. I mean, in chat here, live chat on YouTube, someone's talking about how if no other range class has this restriction as well, I mean, that's you play a ranger. Sorry, this this encounter you don't work very well. You're just automatically out. So they have to have something else for them to be productive when that bow doesn't work. And it can't just be dodge roll backwards, right? I mean, that's backpedaling. I mean, we don't do that.
Right.
They do have a snare. I mean, I'm looking at the list of abilities that we're going to see soon in the PAX setup.
The ones they discussed on the 30th.
Right. They do have a snare. They obviously have a dash ability. And then that dash ability also involves knocking an arrow off during the dash. So, they're going to be very, very mobile. I could see, we're talking from a perspective where we all have experience in MMOs with playing mobility and kiting and stuff like that. Imagine a brand new, more casual player that, they just like the idea of playing Legolas, and so they roll a ranger. They don't really have that idea of, using all those other skills, and they're just shooting off arrows, and a rogue jumps on them. They're not going to think in that way of, I need to kite this rogue. They're just going to wonder why can't they do anything.
Right.
So I don't know.
The first couple of times.
Yeah.
The first couple of times.
Right. And they would learn.
Yeah, exactly.
But a good rogue, I imagine, will be able to be the direct counter, or a good melee in general would be the direct counter to a ranger.
I mean, maybe we just need to go to Steve and explain to him, listen, no, ranger, you're thinking of the D&D ranger. They made a lot of D&D references on that Q&A. And
well,
the
Steve
D&D
loves
ranger,
Pathfinder.
right? Okay, so the D&D or the Pathfinder ranger is indeed a bow wielding, sometimes there's like the Beastmaster version or whatever, but the word ranger, when used in this kind of context, refers to Aragorn. He fights with a sword, guy. Come on.
Right.
He was the first ranger in that. Well, maybe not. I mean, he probably got his ideas from somewhere, but that's the one that comes into popular conception. At least is that's who we're talking about, not Legolas. You need an elf class if you want to play Legolas. So, to me, then, have they mentioned whether there's going to be collision or not for players?
They have not. No.
Yeah, that's a tough thing because, I mean, you'd like to see something like that. It gives you so many more options as far as mechanics you can put into place, but it's technically problematic. I mean, Warhammer Online tried to do that. They tried to make a lot of their play revolve around it, and I know it took them a while to get it to work right. I don't know if it ever did work right the way they wanted it to.
What do you think about the... This was a brand new thing they announced on the June 30th Q&A. The idea that you will have an auto attack skill that is skill based. That where if you hit the button, so let's say imagine your 1 through 9 keys, you have all of your different skills, but on your 1 key or whatever, you have your weapon type skill. So if you're a warrior or a tank or a fighter class as they have in the game, you hit it and you start your sword swing, and then it'll pop up with a little thingy, and if you hit the button again at the right time as that thing goes across the bar, then you follow up with another type skill where it does a CC effect or extra damage or something like that. It's not unique. It's not the first game to do it, but with all the chaos that would happen in PvP or PvE, do you think this is a good or a bad thing? I think it's great. But,
yeah, it's all about skill.
It's a cool idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the chaos in PvP. That's the thing. If you can focus through that, if you can time it right, if you can see, stuns coming and stuff, and still get those combos in, not only are you going to feel like a badass, but you're also powering your ultimate bar, which is going to further. So it's definitely skill based. It's all going to be how it feels, though, right? I mean, if it feels cool and not grindy or gamey like animation canceling, I think it'd be great.
It's
the
supposed
chat
to
says
be
quick
random.
time events. I don't want no quick time
Right,
events.
yeah, no.
I mean,
Quick
it's
time
kind of, but it's more like a timing thing. It's more like a those beat 'em up games where you have to get the timing just right to get your combo, where you hit them and then just as your first punch strikes, you press the button again and it does a follow up combo punch.
I can think of 2 games that have this almost exactly. You have Final Fantasy VIII, if you ever played that. Squall, when he goes to do his auto attack, if you hit the button at the right time, he does extra damage. You have Gears of War, Active Reload, where if you hit it, you would do it faster. So it's not the first game to do it, and in the games that have done it, it was really well received. But in those games, you didn't have 40 people interacting with you.
Exactly.
Right.
So
it sounds like you're going to have to hit the same person again. Especially if you want the 3-part combo, you need the same person 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So that to me suggests. I mean, there's going to be. I mean, just imagine like in Guild Wars 2 or even in World of Warcraft when 2 people are fighting in close quarters, they're like passing through each other or dodging this way and that. I'm not sure it's going to be the system is going. If that's the only system you need to use to power up your ultimate meter, there's going to have to be a very quick timing mechanic because it's going to be too hard to stay with one person, especially in group combat.
And is this accessible to all players?
It sounded like it was accessible to all classes. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying the actual player
Oh.
behind the keyboard. Are we? I mean, there's got to be players out there that it's probably a small minority that are very upset about the idea that they're going to have to use this system to use an ultimate. I don't know. Or let's just latency. I mean, let's break it down to something simple. What happens if this bar pops up on your screen, but you're getting 12 frames a second? And so for you, for somebody else, the bar is moving smoothly, and you can probably hit it effectively. For somebody that has a potato PC, it's like stuttering, and they never get it right. They'll probably be pretty frustrated. But is it going to be client side? When it pops up, is there going to be a latency delay? Or is it server side registered on the server?
That's certainly an interesting question, because in order for a timing mechanic like this to work really well, it needs to feel smooth. You need to not feel like you got cheated. Like if you learn to time it right with a particular ping, but then if you get into a large group of people and it gets a little bit laggy, it could feel like I nailed that. I always get it right, but now that we're in this group of people, the timing is off because it gained an extra 20 milliseconds or what have you.
Yeah, that's rage-inducing. That's throw your mouse. I hit that combo. What's wrong with you? You curse Steve, and no.
Can you imagine losing a duel or arena, where it relied on you hitting like that follow-up, which rooted the enemy, for example, but you knew you hit it, but it didn't register it, and so the rogue jumps on you and kills you.
Oh man, I mean, I've had that plenty of times in PUBG. Like, I know I shot them, and then after you die, you realize there's a bullet hole in like the window frame, and you're like, damn it, stupid cursed window frames made out of stainless steel titanium or something. All right, so we talked a little bit about the tank class, which isn't called the warrior. It's just called the tank.
Yeah,
it's like that's the mechanical name for what it does in the game, but they've just gone ahead and said, nope, that's the end game. Like this is how people refer to him.
Well, there's a tank and then there's a fighter. So they have I guess you could be a tank fighter if you choose it secondary, but yeah, the tank is. I'll tell you something as a PvPer myself, something that really, really stood out. So the tank class in this game, its ultimate is a AoE lasso. Just everybody in the area come to me. That's huge. That is huge for the meta. That is huge for world PvP. That's huge for a myriad of reasons. That will be the critical opener for almost everything when it comes to PvP. Being able to pull all of the players, assuming there's a limit, 5, 10 players, to you could sync that up with your mages or whoever to lock them all down and then just AoE burst the whole group down.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Ares ultimate in Smite as well. It's
exactly.
the same kind of thing. You're like, all of you coming over here. Of course, the disadvantage is you're a little bit vulnerable while you're casting it. It takes a little bit of time. They can get out. If they can get out of the circle of where you are, then they don't get leashed. Like there has to be something to deal with, to counterplay that, obviously. So we've seen the tank, the cleric, the mage, and the ranger. I want to go around. What if you were to play, this demo here, Adam? Which one of these do you think appeals to you the most?
For me, it's a cleric. I'm typically the support player, right? That's just the type of player I am in general. Although we're a little odd in Imperium, where everybody apparently wants to play support.
Yeah.
So for the demo itself, right, I'd probably play support just to see those mechanics.
We're gonna make the entire guild be cleric mage.
I'm curious, Adam, what did you think about the mechanics they talked about? How it's going to be melee, they're going to have a staff, and then not just click a button, I heal you, but the balance of life, the master of life. It sounded more interesting. I don't really play healers, but it sounded more interesting than your standard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's my favorite types of mechanics. They're not the first to do, the type
Right,
of
right.
Warhammer Online. Yeah.
Mhm.
exactly.
That was what I thought of immediately,
So
is they tried to make
that's
the
my
healers a lot more
favorite
interesting.
type. Exactly. Having a healer in melee is also like that's. Oh, thank you. It's you have to pay attention to so much more things when you're in a melee, environment in the melee, blob, so to speak, both on the PvP side of the house and on the PvE side of the house. On the PvP side of the house, the interesting thing being a support, and in the melee blob, is it's so much harder to pick you out in a group, right?
Oh, true. Yeah.
When it comes to focusing you down. But yeah, I found it fascinating that they're mixing the DPS into the healing as well, and you balance those things out. It's really kind of cool, and I'm excited to see how that actually feels um, in game.
Right.
What about you, Free? What would you pick from this list of 4 options?
Oh, without a doubt, I'm going a cleric hybrid setup. I played we were talking about Warhammer having a
Mm-hmm.
similar mechanic. I played a archmage in that, and the idea was very, very similar. The more healing skills you use, the next damaging ability you would use would be greatly enhanced. Or the more, if you weren't actively healing, the more damaging dots and stuff you put on enemies, your next healing skill would be greatly, greatly enhanced. I loved it because it allowed you to, change it up. You weren't just a pure healer. Um, but I will 100% be going a hybrid of some sort of healer, summoner, mage type thing. But that's more so because I have to be able to survey the battlefield. I can't be up front 24/7 focusing on yelling at the guy that I'm trying to chop down with an axe, because then I can't see everything else going on behind me and around me. I'll have that tunnel vision. So playing a ranger is really interesting to me. Maybe be like a what would they call it? Probably a cleric ranger, a druid. Druid, maybe.
Kind of. Yeah, that sounds like it might
I
be
mean,
close.
I don't know. A cleric ranger would sound really good because it provides both, or a bard ranger or something similar like that. I don't know. It'd be, but definitely a hybrid. I don't think that pure classes will be as powerful as we think they will be, for balance reasons.
All right. What about you, Ziz? What are these? Which one of these seems greatest and
Man,
most
I'm
interesting to
lucky.
you?
I got 2 healers here. I'd be playing a tank all day.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I don't. I never play ranged characters or healers. So I either do tank or melee DPS. I'm pretty focused. I just get too focused. Even if I'm on a ranged person, I still just run straight at the person. So if I was on a ranger, I'd be totally screwed because my bow wouldn't work after I ran up to them. So, I did really like, though, talking about Warhammer. I loved the warrior priest and even the disciple of Cain, healing and stuff. So if I can do something, doing damage or something, but still be healing, helping people around me, that's pretty awesome too. But I would probably be a tank. I like to initiate. I like shields. Polls are fun. Talking about like controlling the battlefield. That was one thing I loved about their Q&A, is that integrating both the PvE and PvP, where the skills work similarly in both. They're looking for ways for tanks to control the battlefield in both. And so with these polls, they talked about putting up a wall. So you pull people in and then you put a wall up and they're trying to run away and they can't. Which is really great. Guild Wars 2 had some walls with their Guardian that would reflect stuff and block people in. So it's kind of like trolling people, which I love. So you get to troll people. So yeah, I definitely go tank all day.
You're that person that the ranger who has the minimum distance
Yeah,
is going to hate.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
will focus them. That's through 300 people just to get to the one.
You mentioned Warhammer, and I did have a warrior priest that I played with
Yep.
for quite a while in that. And that was kind of a similar thing. Like, oh, you want to heal somebody? You got to hit the enemy with your hammer first. Just whack away, and then you'll have some healing power saved up, and you can you can give him pop a heal. I think I'm kind of liking the mage because I like lightning bolt.
We know you're gonna be a bard, Bridger. Come on.
Well, yeah, but they didn't have that in this for it, did they? No, they did not.
They did.
All right.
See, he stuck to the rules. He wasn't picking hybrid classes.
Yeah, what would be a bard if you hybridize these classes? A mage cleric, I guess?
And in PAX, it will be pure classes, right? Like
right.
Yeah, so it's a tank's going to be just a tank. And yeah.
I mean, they
It's
didn't
just your
mention
primary, no secondary.
Yeah. I don't think they've mentioned yet because they probably haven't fully fleshed it out yet. But what is the skill bar going to look like? I mean, this particular demo is going to be like 4 abilities plus an ultimate and a utility or something to that effect. Is the full game going to be something like that? Or are we going to see like the massive skill bars that you see in World of Warcraft? Or is it going to be somewhere in between?
They have said in regards...
similar to a... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It sounds similar to like a Dota setup or a...
That's what I was thinking.
Defense of the Ancients type setup in general from a control perspective. But I think they've spoken past that in the past, which I'll leave to Free to cover.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I think us judging these skill bars and stuff is a little early because we know 2 major things. They are, you will be able to customize nearly everything in the UI, from not just moving it around, but possibly like the transparencies and the size of it, and because Steve specifically is not. Is not just a developer. He played these MMOs, Arcade and stuff, over these last years, and he knows what he liked to be able to do, like in Arcade and stuff, and he knows what he wished he was able to do. So especially in that department, I'm a little skeptical in other areas with the developers, but in that department, I'm very confident that he's going to you'll be able to really just make it however you want. I wouldn't be surprised if you could move your individual skills to certain parts of the screen, and your cast bar, make it a different color or something, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I was more or less thinking...
100%,
Go ahead, Adam.
I'm not 100% caught up in relation to this specific subject, but have they spoken about public-facing APIs and the ability for community-created add-ons?
Yeah, I think they kind of gave a non-answer, if I remember correctly.
It's a no, but we're going to leave it open.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a no, which is very depressing. The only thing they said on one of the earlier streams was that they do not want you to be able to go into, let's say, a website and look up all the quests that give you access to certain items. They want you to be able to discover that, and they think that having elaborate APIs that draw every little detail out of the game that you could just pull up on a website sort of kills the immersion of being able to discover that stuff. They gave a specific example.
People are just going to put it in a wiki.
Right.
Just so you know. It's still going to happen. I appreciate I appreciate him trying not to make it easy for the people to make a website of that kind.
Look, I want so many things with the API because we do the AOC wiki .net. I really want to be able to draw the skills and create a character builder and stuff like that. But they seem really like they don't like it. Now they did say in a much earlier Q&A that they're still going to have a website that shows leaderboards and for every little thing. They're going to have they quote unquote said they're going to have a list of who kills bosses first and stuff or similar to that. So they're going to have their own API. They're just going to keep it close. They're not going to let others get it. And this leads into add-ons. A lot of people are wondering, can I get extra add-ons for Ashes? And they gave a flat out they didn't say it, but it was obvious. It
right.
was
no third party.
No third party.
Anything interacting with the game code itself.
Right. But they left it open to the fact that they might change their stance on certain things later. But they seem to think that in their UI, the entire package, they will have everything that you would normally look for in a third-party add-on available. That's very ambitious to say that, but that's what their stance is.
When they said that, I was like, "How? You think you're just gonna make something everybody wants? Good luck with that."
I just want DPS meters. I mean, that's it. If we're gonna do some serious raiding in a dungeon, and I have 10, 20 people for a raid, and I have 5 rangers, I'm asking all of you, how do you know between those 5 rangers who your best performing rangers are?
Oh, the one with the green hair. Definitely the best.
I mean, you can't, I understand DPS meters come with a stigma. It's like elitists and, min-maxers, those evil people. But there is a real reason they were developed, for World of Warcraft, and um, it's because eventually it's going to come down to the line when that epic bow drops, and for a guild that bases where that drop's going to go, based on performance, how do you tell of the 8 rangers in your 20-man raid which one has been most deserving besides just showing up for the raid?
And it's
People
not
want it
just
to be a
about
meritocracy,
you
and
being able
without
to
data,
tell
you
as a
can't make
leader.
it a meritocracy, right?
Yep. Yeah, and it's not just about being able to tell as a leader, right? It's also about the other rangers being able to tell between them who is the higher performer. So when that bow inevitably goes to the highest performing ranger, right? They're all okay with that because they can see those metrics just as well as you can, right?
And
So
it's
it creates that
also
transparency.
kind of the only way to prove who's right. If somebody says, "Oh, this build is clearly better," no, this build is clearly better. Well, there's nothing clear about it if you can't see the actual data of what DPS is coming out of that. So
You remember what we did in Guild Wars 2 when this came up,
yeah,
right? We had to send people one by one because there's no DPS meters. We had to send them to the PvP battleground area where there were these mobs that you could just beat on, and you could kill them, and then when you killed them, they instantly respawn. And we had to stopwatch our every class and tell them, okay, 3, 2, 1, start, and then they do their full rotation on the different
yeah.
tiers of
It's
these
like,
mobs.
so as an elementalist, you should be able to defeat this one in 7 seconds or less. There you
Yeah,
go.
and it was extremely frustrating because it's like you had to individually watch them, stopwatch people, whereas if you just had a chart, it's a lot easier.
Mhm.
World of Warcraft did it. People like World of Warcraft rating. It's arguably, besides WildStar and some others, the best out there, right? Still.
Mhm.
Um, so if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
in my
So
opinion.
let me throw this back in the direction I meant to send it. So I guess the way to put this is, would you like to see kits in terms of what's on your skill bar? Like in Guild Wars 2, where you had a weapon that determined what skills were available to you at the bottom. It's not necessarily going to be in that way, but like they might say, here's one kit for the mage, here's another kit for the mage, etc., etc. Or do you like the mix and match approach that other games have come up with, like Guild Wars 1 style, where you're like, here's 8 spots in your bar, fill them with whatever you want?
I'll let me jump in just because Guild Wars 2 drove me nuts because their UI you couldn't move stuff like you could re-keybind it. When I'm looking on my keyboard and it's like 3, 1, 4, 5, and then every guardian who uses a two-handed sword has the exact same weapon abilities, right? That was frustrating to me. Like you like some of them, but there's no way the developer's going to pick the skills that I want. You think I need that in my kit, but I don't want that in my kit. I want to do something else.
Well, let me
So
play devil's advocate for a moment here. Every Riven in League of Legends has the same 4 abilities, right? But they're still not always going to play the same necessarily. But
yeah,
even
but
if
I'm
they
not
do,
playing a MOBA. I'm playing an MMO.
okay. But I'm
I
saying
get to
that's
create my character.
okay. Okay.
So I think ESO did it better, where you pick a weapon and it gives you 5 weapon options, but you can use one of them. You can use 5 of them. I think some of the skill bars are a little small, but I like having more options. I don't want 30 buttons on my bar because those get really repetitive and they're kind of boring. But I would say don't lock me in, make me use something because you think I want to use it.
So my only concern there is I like the idea of developer crafted, like here's a kit designed to work this way, like the MOBA style. Like here's 3 abilities that work together to give this character a very specific theme, and I kind of like the way that works out. And it's the same kind of thing in Smite. That's a third person MMO style game in terms of how the combat kind of plays out, but it's obviously got MOBA skill type systems and a MOBA meta game attached to it. But it feels a little bit more like an MMO because you're in a third person and you're moving around and hitting people. So that's certainly appealing. The disadvantage of the mix and match whatever you want thing is the difficulty in balancing, because yes, you've made it way more interesting for people to go and build their own character the way they want, but are you going to get cookie cutter builds, which is essentially the same thing as a kit, where everybody says, oh, here are the 3 ways that you should build a ranger, and anything else is suboptimal, and now you've essentially created 3 kits without meaning to.
I think they should just lock them. I think you should have access to 50 skills, and you should be able to create a kit choosing from all of those skills, not based on weapon. But once you enter an arena or a siege or a dungeon, it should lock you. Like that's my opinion. So let you do whatever you want before you enter the content, and then you're locked in. So what that means is that you would have different types of rangers. Like if you went into a castle siege, you would have rangers that are excelling at using rain of arrows, their ultimate, you know, and then you would have rangers that excel at like CC trap, hamstring type stuff and the midline or something like that. You could define builds in that way. And then you wouldn't be able to just freely swap between them, which means that if you go in bringing the wrong build, like if you're a tank and you didn't bring magical shield, and now you're looking at a mage because you thought you were going to be cute and bring nothing but offensive abilities, you can't just quickly throw magic shield on your bar. You should have thought about that ahead of time.
Doesn't that limit things a little bit in terms of you're basically watering down all builds into, oh, we need to make sure it's got the most versatility, because otherwise we could be countered real easily if we go deep into this thing. We don't want the rock, paper, scissors to kill us. So you either got a situation where the match is decided ahead of time because we built this counter and they built the one that counters us, and so we lose. So why are we even playing this out if we've already made the decision that determines who wins? Or everybody just brings the most versatile combination, and then nobody gets to play the extremes because everybody knows that's a bad thing to do. It's a difficult way, and I feel like, if you're looking at, like, say, Overwatch, and if everybody could not change their character, how many people would play Tracer right out of the gate? Or how many people would play Winston knowing that if the other team has a Reaper, give up. Why even play? You have to be able to switch in that game after you die in order to take advantage or deal with a problem that the other team's comp is dealing with you. I don't know. I feel like that versatility, not freely, like all the time in combat, just switching things, but maybe only after you die or only so many times in a round, with limitations, I think it can add a little bit deeper strategy layer to it. Adam, what are your thoughts on the kit versus the swapping debate?
So I much prefer customization. When as much customization as you want to toss my way, yeah, I'm going to love it. Right, one of my favorite games in terms of class skills and so on and so forth was the Secret World, and it was literally every single skill is open to you, right, on the entire wheel of skills, and you put them together how you want. You had a certain amount of passive slots and a certain amount of active slots, and you just come up with what you want. And I am a addict when it comes to theory crafting. So you give me a tool set like that, I'm going to be at it for literal days straight, without sleep, trying to figure out what is the best combination for XYZ. And I much prefer that as opposed to here's your you're a tank using a one-handed hammer. This is your skill set. I was never a fan of that in Guild Wars 2. I don't think I could be a fan of it in any other game in general. But I do like the idea of locking in your chosen set when you go into content. I could see them allowing you to change aspects of it at certain points, right? Especially in the PvP area. But I can also see that as it's a point counterpoint system, right? So when I go into a PvP match using the skill set that I've built, and I come across something that is literally the antithesis of me, right, and is just going to cream me, right? That next round I can swap out my my skill set, but they're going to do the exact same thing, right? So it becomes an interesting little chess game, which I think would be really
I mean,
cool,
it's certainly
personally.
there's pros and cons to both sides of this, obviously. I mean, League of Legends locks you in for the entire game. You're stuck with whatever comp you picked and whatever skills you did. I mean, you can buy different items, but usually it doesn't allow you to vastly change how your character plays. Whereas you have the traditional like FPS class-based objective shooter, which Overwatch is a perfect example of that, and you can just change whatever you want whenever you want. It's very fluid, and it allows people to respond dynamically in game, and people love both styles. I think it might just be a subjective choice, and depending upon which one you execute, you just have to make sure you execute it well.
One of the things I love about Ashes of Creation is that choices matter. You look at nodes, you look at caravans, you look at these different places that you go and you spend your time, building up these things. And I feel like that would also need to carry over to your character, right? Your choices should matter. Are you going to have an equal chance of beating every person you fight? No, but if I'm the one that chose to, let's say, make my ability an AoE instead of single target, right? I'm specializing. I say I want to be able to do more AoE damage. Now, does that mean I'm as good as the rogue who specializes in 1v1? No, but that's my choice. And so I think you should be able to, whether it's a point system, whatever, specialize, have lots of options, but specialize how you want. And then maybe, I don't think it should be like, oh, I just click a couple buttons and now I'm different, but maybe there's a respec. Maybe you have to go do a quest. Maybe some way to say, I've changed my mind. I want to undo these changes I made. I don't think it should be like a quick, hey, we're in a siege, I just died, they got a lot of archers, I'm going to pick this ability that's good against archers, and all right, I'm ready to go. This is the MMO, right? This is a long-term progression. This is an investment. It's not a first-person shooter, right?
Sure. And I certainly like the idea that you're talking about where choices have to matter and things like that. I wonder if you could carry that on to the concept of, okay, you're a mage or you're a ranger or what have you, and when you're leveling up, you choose between learning this skill or that skill. And you're going to wind up with a repertoire of, like Free said, like 50 things that you could choose between to bring to bear at any given task, and maybe it locks it once you go into the dungeon. You've chosen your bar, right? But a different mage will have a different set of 50 choices available to them. And if you wanted to change those decisions you made while your character was growing and changing and becoming who they are, then that would require some kind of retraining thing. Typically that just becomes the form of a respec where you have to pay, 50 silver or whatever to go and change out your stuff. But at the same time, the idea being you've chosen this group of skill sets and that you're going to choose between them. Other games have done similar things. Obviously, the talent trees in World of Warcraft were kind of that idea as well, where you lock some things, but everybody gets access to the main group of abilities that you can choose between. Anyway, certainly an interesting discussion. We'll just have to see. Once we get some more information on the actual game, we'll come back to it, of course. I did want to talk about one more topic before we end today's show, and that is healing, because we did get a preview a little bit, and we talked a little bit about it when we were talking about the cleric earlier, with regards to the fact that they're going to have a bunch of conventional and unconventional healing setups. The abilities, just for reference, that they mentioned on the show were a targeted spot heal, which would provide a heal over time, as well as a proximity damage over time. A lot of these have like a vampiric effect to them, it seems. And then another one where you have enemies' life removed, it gives it to allies. Another one which is very interesting, it averages out everybody's hit points. That's going to be a difficult one to know when to play. I can see that either being used to
one
troll. Yeah, it's going to be used either to troll people, or it's going to be used like by mistake and get somebody else killed. Like, I'm worried about that one. A chain heal where you like chain through a bunch of people in front of you. And then a resurrection skill, which kind of gives people a zillion ultimate for a short duration. If you cast the resurrect on somebody who's still alive, then for the next X seconds, 3-4 seconds, if they die, they come right back to life. And if you cast it on somebody who's dead, then it's a much longer cast, but you bring them back to life. That's a really cool idea to give that same skill a double purpose. And of course, it's probably going to be on a fairly long cooldown, so you have to strategically choose or tactically choose when to use it. So that's the kind of things they've talked about in Ashes of Creation as far as the healing is concerned on the first healing class that they are showing off at the first demo of ever. So asterisk. But healers apparently are present in pretty much every game. They're present in MOBAs, they're present in first-person shooters, they're ever present in RPGs and in MMORPGs. There are very few games that don't have a healer.
Guild Wars
Why do
2.
you think that is?
Why do we
I
think
think
most games don't have healers?
No, I'm sorry. There's very few games that do not have a healer. Why do you think so many? Why is it so ubiquitous?
It's a whole
Well,
play
it
style, right?
caters.
Some people.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, go ahead. I mean, that's
No,
some people don't
that's
want to do
perfect. That's
damage. Some
exactly
people don't
where I
want
was
to take.
going.
They want to help their friends and be the one that's got their back. And God bless them.
I think well, BDO, which is currently arguably one of the more popular MMOs right now, um, they don't have a dedicated healer class. I mean, they have the wizard can cast AoE heals. There's potion spam a little bit depending on how you look at it, but they don't have that. Guild Wars 2 didn't have a dedicated healing class. You used your own healing skill, that healed yourself.
Didn't is the key word there. They do now with their new expansion.
Oh yeah.
They,
Okay, well,
Yep.
that's another topic for another day. But for the longest time they did it,
And it was actually a key function of what they sort of marketed the game as.
yeah, that the Trinity was not present, that anybody could play any class. But Ashes of Creation has been very clear in saying that they're not trying to reinvent the MMO genre or change the Trinity or anything like that. They're just enhancing it. They're basically going back to the roots and enhancing it. Like they're very clear about that. So there's going to be hardline tank class, hardline DPS, hardline healer, and healers in MMOs I think are just almost a necessity because not everybody is as twitchy as somebody that plays a DPS or a tank, and there exists a lot of people that don't want to kill things. It's not because they're casual or they're any lesser a player. They just don't like killing things around them. They'd rather just heal their buddies.
So do you think maybe the healing play style is necessary in part because the vast majority of these games only have one way to resolve any kind of situation, and that's to whack it with a hammer, right? Combat is the resolution mechanic in MMOs. Pretty much, period. Every once in a while, you'll get like a jumping puzzle where platforming is a skill that you need to do and not combat. Every once in a while, you'll get a puzzle where you have to figure out and answer a question properly or remember a piece of detail when you're, playing through an RPG. Like, you need to say the right answer here or they're gonna, do something weird. So there are very few games that don't rely heavily on combat as the central resolution mechanic. And I think you're right. I think that as a result, some people don't like combat. They're more pacifistic than others, and they want to resolve things in different ways. And having that support play style certainly allows them to enjoy the same game as their friends who have more interest in combat stuff. So what about the varying powers of healers? Because you have all these games with healers all have different amounts of power that a healer has. League of Legends has been very careful to make sure that their healers are not primary healers, like they're support classes, but they throw out more shields than heals. Even the main primary healer in the game, Soraka, cannot out heal somebody whose devastating damage is going down on a single character. Whereas in some MMOs, a very powerful healer can do that. They can keep the tank alive while he keeps taking all the boss's shots. So there's certainly a different variation of powerful healing versus weak healing. How does that change the gameplay?
I mean, the balance in AOC though. I mean, if you saw the ultimate skill, right? The ultimate skill for a healer is divine form, or what we have it written down as divine form. But basically, the cleric will lift themselves up and I guess be ancestral looking, and everybody around them, or at least within their party, will start getting massive heals. It's kind of like Malfurion, and similar the ults that you see from other games, where it's just massive amounts of heals over time. So that's really powerful, and the ability to tell, like let's say Ziz is a tank, the ability to tell Ziz that you could just YOLO the hell out of that Zerg ahead of you, and I'm going to cast a resurrection on you before you do it, is also really, really powerful. Healers are going to be extremely necessary in this. This isn't going to be one of those healers where it's nice to have a few of them. It sounds like it's almost going to be a requirement to have like a good chunk of your raid be a healer, or some healing class just for the resurrection abilities. I mean, And that ultimate. Imagine you just popping ultimates and stacking them with other healers, and everybody just popping their ultimate one after another. But all of that comes down when it comes to balance, like you're talking. Balance is going to come down to, can you stack the heal over times? That's the question. Can I stack 20 heal over times on Ziz when he's charging the enemy? Because if I can, he's unstoppable. He can just do whatever he wants, But if I can only put one heal over time on him when he dives in, there's the balance,
Well, and that's the difference between PvE and PvP is PvE, they can control it, right? The tank goes in, there's 3 mobs. We know how much damage this is. We got to tune it. PvP, you have no idea. You can run in and no one attacks you, or because you're the one that's 1 inch ahead of everybody else, you are instantly focus fired by the 50 people on the other side, and there's nothing anybody can do. And so it's all about the feel, really. I mean, does it feel powerful and meaningful? And do they want battles to last forever? Do they want sieges that could take 8 hours because people don't die? Do they want people dying and rezzing and running back? And
mana. What's the
Right.
mana cost?
Yeah.
How much can you spam a heal?
I do think that
It's all about balancing.
if healing is too powerful, it has one effect that it does is it makes all fights dragged out longer, right? It effectively increases the effective hit points of everybody that's being healed, so that you think, oh, they only have 1,000 hit points. I do, 100 DPS. The fight can be over in 10 seconds. Well, no, if somebody's healing them at 50 heals per second, then the fight takes twice as long as expected, right? So, or 50% longer. But I think the thing that happens when you get healing being less and less powerful, but you have it work in a clutch situation, it can be way more interesting. I think the example of the resurrection skill, where it has that very short window where if you time it right, it can be really powerful, but otherwise you're just going to screw it up and they're going to run in, they're going to try to do what you told them to do, but it's going to take a little too long for them to die, right. And then they're like, damn it, John, why did you tell me to run in there? Like, I think that example is a really cool one of how, like, okay, this can be really powerful, but it's a clutch thing. You have to time it right. You have to use it at the right exact moment. Whereas in other games, it's just healing is just this constant wave of your health is going up. I'm giving you this and I'm giving you that and I'm giving you this. And it's not a tactical choice. You're just pushing it out. Now, to be fair, Steven said we don't want people staring at bars, just pressing buttons to make the bars go up, which is something that pretty much every MMO has said for a long time now. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, I'm hopeful that they're cognizant of the issue with healing being too powerful, that you just have people constantly doing nothing but healing, and they might as well be a bot at that point. And they seem very interested in not having that be the case.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the skills they've showed already are way more interesting than that. I mean, the skill you're talking about could be incredibly powerful, right? You time that when a boss hit comes down and one-shots people, nope, I'm back alive and we're alive and kicking. And I mean, I'm excited because the skills they're putting in sound more interesting, sound more fun and engaging, and the skill cap is very high. Like you said, you throw it on somebody and, it ended 2 seconds before you died and we do nothing, right?
It's not just that one. It's not just that one. It's the other skills that are more vampiric in nature, right?
The balanced life one.
So here's a question for all of you and those in chat about healing. Should a healer, a pure cleric, if a rogue jumps on them and does the full burst everything, should a single healer, be able to survive and out heal that? Because that is the ultimate question.
Well, a traditional cleric wears plate mail, and so they should be. That's an interesting question.
All right. I mean, that's the thing. If you're a tank or a fighter class or a rogue, you jump on a healer. You did everything right, positioning. You're on them. Are you able to kill the healer?
Well, if you're a rogue and you're specifically built to kill a healer, you've made all your abilities 1v1. You got interrupts and stuns and healing debuffs. Then yes.
I mean, the other way to deal with the healing mechanics is have counterplay involved, right? I mean, the thing that comes to mind is There are some abilities in various games. League of Legends has it where if you buy a certain item, your abilities when you hit an enemy, healing on that enemy is halved for a shortened amount of time. So it helps like, we know they've got a strong healing ability, so we're going to use our tank has got an AoE effect so that things around him heal at 75% effectiveness.
Yeah, but leaving those variables out, I'm talking raw damage versus raw healing output. Of one class being able to do more damage than another class can restore.
Like best case scenario, the most damage possible versus the most healing possible. I think eventually you have to have the damage overtake the healing.
Yeah,
because then you could potentially have it never
I think
ends.
it's just a matter of time. It should be a mana crunch, right? It should be a time factor, right? Typically, rogue type classes are those classes that are meant to beat on healers and focus fire or focus those folks down, right? They are energy based or quick. They're not resource management classes, right? They're their resources are just constant. They can constantly get through their rotation over and over and over again. They have series of bursts followed by a plateau followed by another burst, so on and so forth, right? So eventually that healer's mana has to give up, right? Or their healing battery, so on, so to speak, would need to give in, or run out to where that.
So we're in
that
agreement
road
that a healer initially should be able to survive it via their mana pools and cast.
I'm not in agreement.
But once
I've
their
been trying to hide
cooldowns are
my
going-
bias, but
and oh crap button.
I do not like games with strong healing. I like healing when it's more subtle, when it's more interesting. And I know what they're going for here, but I feel like the healer should not be able to out heal the damage coming in. I don't like fights that have to take an extremely long time just because there's a healer there. But that's one of the things that actually grabbed me towards Guild Wars 2 was the say, hey, we're breaking the Trinity, because I was all about that. And I know that makes me an outlier for the most part, but I'm that's the way it is, okay?
Yeah, it does change the fight a lot too, which I think is it bugs me when you can fight one or two people, right? You're doing a 1v2, you're out soloing. Oh, there's two people, and maybe you're able to attack them, and then you find another group, and one of them is a healer, and it's like, well, I'm kind of screwed because I can't burst someone down fast enough, right? Or it's a group situation where you have your group of 5 and you're out roaming, and this group, oh, they don't have a healer, easy, no problem. And this group, oh, they got 2 healers, well, crap, it's good. What I mean? If the healer's too powerful, where it makes that big of a swing, that can just it messes with the meta too much.
Right. In a lot of games, the healer is so powerful that having one and not having one is the difference between winning and losing 99% of the time. Right. And I'm not as big of a fan of that. I don't like it being that powerful. But we'll see how it is. But I guess to answer your question, Free, I think that in that case, a burst damage, and in a lot of other games, burst damage is specifically the counter to healing, because they usually make the weakness of healer is they have one really good targeted, I'm going to bring you back up by at least 50% of your HP pool, but then that thing goes on cooldown, and the rest that they have are mostly heals over time, and maybe group heals that are much weaker. But that means that if you have somebody coming in and spiking one person with a ton of damage, after that one long cooldown big heal, then that person is done, and they're not going to be able to out heal the damage because everything else is a slower heal over time or weaker big heals. And so in that general vicinity, I see the rogue doing the assassin class, whatever it is, a rogue or a super assassin hunter, whatever. Ranger.
I just hope that as somebody that's going to be playing a healer, that they have a extremely long cooldown insta cast ability.
Right.
Final Fantasy 14 has this for their healers and for many classes where you pop it and just your next skill is instant cast. But once you do that, you're locked out for 5-10 minutes, from using that insta cast ability, because that would be a direct counter, although temporarily, for a rogue jumping on you, insta cast a defense shield or something, or a bubble on you or what have you.
You want that oh shit ability, that
right? The priest invulnerability shield in World of Warcraft.
The oh shit ability, like he said. I mean, that's perfectly worded. It's every class needs to have that, and I hope that the healer or the cleric archetype has some sort of insta-cast
Right, the
ability,
mage
because
has a blink ability, right? That's their oh shit
Right.
ability. I'm getting out of here.
if Bridger's a
and
mage and I'm a
yeah.
healer, and that rogue does jump on him, I can't wait for a cast bar to save him. There has to be an oh shit,
Uh-oh. Ah. It appears that my sound card has crapped out on me again, and I think I know exactly why. So I will work on fixing that. But we're basically at the end of the show here. We'll talk a little bit right after. But for now, guys, thank you for joining us. Stick around for the post show. If I can get this working again, we'll be there to talk about it with you. But we are essentially recording here second week of every month, second Sunday of every month, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I am Bridger from Imperium. We will see you next time. You can check the show notes or get the RSS feeds on talesofshow.com. All right, and now I'm going to see if I can't reboot this and fix this problem. Okay, let's see. Default. No. All right, now let's jump back in. Can I hear you guys?
Yep.
I can hear you. I think it's on the wrong sound. Yep, but we can fix that. There we go. I know exactly what it was this time. I was messing around with an audio interface program, and I changed the bit rate on
Self-inflicted.
to minimum latency, but so it had like a buffer overrun or something within the sound card interface. It's some weird audio thing, but it should work now that I've changed it back. And just like that, it broke itself again. And there we go. Now I can hear you guys, yes?
Test.
There it is. Okay.
Test,
For
test.
reals this time. Okay, so I'm sorry we cut you off a little bit there. But is there anything else you guys wanted to add before we close out for today?
Healer, cleric, mage, master race.
Cleric, mage, master race. Okay.
Yep, cleric, mage, master race. Everybody will run meteor shower and mass AOE heal over time, and we will win all things.
Yeah, just cast them into the furball in the middle, and
Yep. No melee in the guild from this type forward. Just nothing but meteor shower and AOE heals.
Well, you need the
Those-
tank AoE pole,
Those
so then
AoE
you have a
tank
spot
pole.
to.
Yeah, exactly.
When you have a million meteors raining down,
That's
I mean,
true.
they could be anywhere. They're dying. So
That's true. That's true.
until that one group gets smart and they pop a magic immunity shield, and then we're like, oh shit, we didn't think about this.
Right. Retreat.
Retreat.
We're gonna need to reevaluate.
It's
Never-
always.
Respect.
I've always wondered, what's the, like, in fiction reason that magic is just able to identify friend from foe? What is that, how does it do that?
I've got to tell you, I didn't say too much on this, but the special, like what they call utility skills,
Oh, yeah.
I was very, very. They have to be specific to PvE, because some of them that they gave examples of are completely useless for PvP. I mean, track footprints. You're not going to do that in the middle of a.
That was seeing physical hidden objects. So again, you could see traps that were hidden.
No.
Right.
The ranger can track things. So maybe can you imagine if the ranger popped that ability, that you would start seeing like the footprints of rogues that were stealthed around you? That would be cool.
Right. That would be cool. Or just footprints of people who were in the area recently. You can see, just follow them. Just go after them.
I mean, it's an MMO. You're just gonna like pop the ability and go, oh, there were people here going every direction at some point in the last 3 hours.
Truth and Just Us in chat says, hardcore rules say friendly fire is on always. So if we did that mass meteor shower, we would just end up killing each other.
And if it's friendly fire from your own meteor hits, shouldn't it be enemy heals? If you like blanket AoE heal, I mean those go hand in hand,
True.
don't they?
It would be a perpetual just blob on top of another enemy blob of heals and meteors, just not doing anything. Everything would cancel, and
Nobody
it would
dies.
just break. It would just end up breaking out and dance. You know,
Everybody lives. I love it.
Has any MMO done friendly fire? I don't think that any there is an MMO that does friendly fire.
In a massive situation like that, no.
No.
Just period. I don't think any.
Crowfall's gonna try.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not an MMO
They said
that's
they
not
were,
yet.
Well,
Crowfall,
remember they have the
Life is
ability
Feudal, the
to
MMO.
have different rule sets for their different like server things, so they could probably try that, friendly fire thing just to see what happens, I guess. And for the 10% of people that think that sounds fun. I mean, I think it sounds fun if you can also guarantee that nobody's going to troll with it.
Right. Well, if it for example in Crowfall,
ever.
it's a free for all situation. So if someone is hitting you with an AoE, you can just turn around and kill them.
Yep.
But
It'll be interesting. The comps that these guilds are going to be coming out with, like you got to imagine other guilds right now are looking at these classes and probably already deciding, we need X amount of melee and stuff like that. That's, to me, obviously as running a guild, it's interesting because I hear from these other guilds like they're going to go all mage, and stuff like that. Like this early before the game launches. It's
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yep.
It makes perfect sense.
right.
We're all going to be
or
bards, and we're all going, for an economic focus. That's
the theory
Bard
craft
is
of
master economic.
yeah, like the theory crafting of how many healers is enough. Because Ziz and Adam are completely correct. We are so healer heavy, like in our group. Like we're gonna have to be the bad guys and say, look, we know we have too many healers. Some of you need to,
Try something else.
hybrid out into a utility or CC class or something, But other guilds are going to be like, we don't have enough healers. It's going to be interesting.
It'll be really interesting to see how the hybrid works because of secondary classes. You're not just going to be a cleric, right? You're going to be a cleric slash rogue slash bard. Are you going to be a bard slash tank?
Can that really be a thing? A cleric rogue?
Yeah, I mean, you stealth and go behind enemy lines and heal their.
My friend
own
needs
guys? I
help.
don't know.
I'm going to stab him with this healing dagger.
I think
Who
there's
knows?
there's a
That could be
misconception
fantastic.
there with the hybrid classes. A lot of people are saying that when you choose a secondary class that you're going to be given extra skills, but I don't think they
No.
ever actually said that.
Modifies the skills you have.
Right. So I heard there was somebody in chat like 20 minutes ago that was saying, the second class will give you all of those other skills.
No.
I don't think that's how it works.
It modifies what you had on the flavor of your secondary class. So if you're a cleric and you pick rogue, maybe that you could make yourself stealth while you're
They'll
using
never
one of your
see you heal.
heals.
They will never see you heal.
Yeah,
You're
I
just
mean, who
stealth
knows,
healing
like-
everywhere.
Yeah.
a stealth healer.
Right?
Oh man, I cut my
Can you
arm off.
imagine?
What? It's back to
A rogue
normal?
trying to jump on a cleric rogue, and the cleric rogue just stun locks the rogue.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I'm definitely picturing like a hero that just goes around the forest, and when somebody gets hurt, they just suddenly get healed, and they're like, oh, it's the forest spirit. He's here to help.
Right? Exactly.
I hope you can't do things in stealth. That would be so that'd be so cancer. Can you imagine Ziz, a tank rogue,
Right.
stealth?
Well, I mean,
like,
it wouldn't be all
tanking?
the time. Like when you are a regular rogue and you're in stealth and you do damage, it pops you out of stealth. But like, what if you have this really long cast time ability that's got like a 5-minute cooldown, but it takes 5 seconds to cast? You augment it so during those 5 seconds you're invisible. Boom. That'd be sweet. Wouldn't you want that, Adam? You're a healer. Wouldn't you want to be invisible while you're healing
fantastic.
somebody?
Of course.
Then you don't
That goes without saying.
Right?
I'm picturing this cancer in an actual PvP scenario, and it's like telling
Can't
my
find the
assassin
healers.
rogue team, take out the enemy. These two healers that we know.
They can't find them. Right?
Kill Evlig,
There we go.
kill this person. Well, we can't find him.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
Don't know what
Well,
to tell you.
he's clearly healing him. Find him.
Nope. He's invisible.
Follow the green swirling light
Right,
back to its
exactly.
source.
See,
Yeah.
you were talking about tracking people with those utility skills. There you go. Boom, full circle. They've thought this whole thing through. They know what they're doing.
I'm waiting for somebody to sound grab that statement free. Kill Evelake.
But he's invisible. You can't see him.
Yes.
I'm curious though to see how effective hybrids are, because in a lot of games it's like you want to be a healer, you have to pick the best healer, or there's no point. But with so many options, are the utilities?
I see a lot of like hybrid classes that are very similar, like cleric bard. I could see that. You know, I see a lot of people doing that. I don't see a lot of in the future cleric tank. You know, well maybe no paladin maybe, but like a self-healing tank. That makes sense. But cleric rogue, I don't legitimately see that unless somebody's trolling.
Ooh.
Cleric
I
bard.
could see that. I could see that working, and it just enhancing the vampiric type healing skills, right? The melee vampiric type healing skills. So they can't go invisible, but they do a bit more melee
Okay,
damage.
but then flip it opposite. A rogue cleric. Tell me one skill that makes sense there.
So that's like the self-healing.
Self-healing.
Right.
Self-healing. There we go.
Which as a solo player would work, but in a group situation.
No, you're not getting away that easy. Give me one skill that a rogue would benefit with cleric abilities added to it.
Well, they're not abilities.
I guess the vampiric idea is the only one I've got.
Master of life and death.
I mean, you see, your tongue tied there. So there.
Wait a minute. You burst them, but you can't kill them all the
running a
way.
church.
So then you cast the self-resurrect on yourself right before they kill you, and then you come back and burst them again.
I'm just saying that when they're actually sitting at that table with that whiteboard in that room that we always see, and they're designing these skills, when they're talking rogue cleric, they probably sat there for a bit. That's all I'm saying.
It wasn't obvious. Like, oh yeah, tank, cleric, paladin, boom, got it. Move on. We got fighter, mage. Spell sword. Perfect. Move on. Like, we've got templates for these, but you're right. I think it's hard to think of a template for a rogue cleric.
Or a rogue bard. That's even worse.
No, rogue bard is great. It's perfect. There's
Are you gonna stab them with your violin? I mean,
no, bards don't only use their violin. They use lutes.
Lutes
and
flutes. I mean? But the skills.
Flute.
I mean, is the rogue going to sneak up to the back of an enemy and sing to them? I mean,
historically, bards are
debuffs.
masters of many skills, including sleight of hand and dexterous things. They do a lot of dagger throwing, not to mention, critical hit finding locations. It's closer than you would think.
Okay, we'll see. I'm just the first person that says they're gonna.
Enemy, they just tell them a nice sleepy time story, and they go to sleep for a while.
I mean, the rogues, the bards that you see in D&D are typically wielding a finesse weapon like a rapier in one hand. Sometimes it's a rapier in one hand and a short sword in the other, and it's it's not too far off.
I don't think the hybrid. I misspoke. I don't think the hybrid's going to change weapons or anything, but the skills like.
Right, I'm just saying the classes themselves aren't too different when you look at other examples. All right. Anyway, let's call it for tonight. We've been on for like an hour and a half, so let's call it there. Good show, guys. Thanks for everybody.
Having me.
Thanks for listening.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us, Sis. We hope to have you back again in the future.
Sis, plug your YouTube real quick.
Go to youtube.com, search for It's Ziz, and there I am. It's pretty amazing.
It's Z-I-Z.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. It's like, who is it? It's Ziz.
No apostrophe, though.
Right. No.
He's got a pretty cool show. If you didn't see it yet, Bridger, called Ashton's Report.
I was actually watching that a little bit today. That's he's doing our job. He's telling the people what they need to hear.
In a common sense way.
In a 10-minute chunk instead of the 2-hour chunks that you get from their live streams.
Yes. Yeah, that's the goal.
This is how I keep myself up to date. Thank you, Ziz.
Yeah.
Everybody thanks Ziz. All right. Have a good one, guys.